Activists on both sides of the aisle were stunned early this week when a draft decision in the Dobbs versus Jackson case was leaked by someone inside the Supreme Court. The document suggests that a strong majority of the justices have found that the Roe decision was egregiously wrong and that the power to either limit or allow abortions in the U.S. must be returned to the individual states, not mandated at the federal level. Here's President Joe Biden describing the draft opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito that would overturn Roe v. Wade as, quote, radical.
It would mean that every other decision relating to the notion of privacy is thrown into question.
Chief Justice John Roberts has confirmed the authenticity of the document that was published by Politico Monday night, a draft of a majority opinion in the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization case. The case is a direct challenge to the precedents established in Roe v. Wade in 1973 and then affirmed in Planned Parenthood v. Casey in 1992. Together, these effectively created a so-called right to abortion in federal law. Alito's opinion states plainly, "We therefore hold that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey must be overruled." He also describes the reasoning in Roe as exceptionally weak. On Capitol Hill, Senate Democrats, without enough votes to codify their pro-abortion agenda into law, are advocating for elimination of the filibuster so they can succeed in enshrining abortion in the code of law before the Supreme Court's official opinion is issued and Roe ceases to be the law of the land.
Women in this country are paying for the fact that the Republicans have basically sabotaged the Supreme Court.
Meanwhile, Republicans are questioning how the draft came to light, and many are disturbed that someone working within the Supreme Court would purposely leak such a highly confidential document.
This lawless action should be investigated and punished.
In a statement, the Chief Justice has called for a full investigation into the source of the leak. The statement also noted that the document is not the decision or final position of the Supreme Court in the Dobbs case. The official and highly anticipated opinion is expected to be among the last issued this term, in late June or July. And joining us now for her reaction is longtime pro-life strategist Allison Centofante. Allison, thanks for joining me. What was your initial reaction to this breaking news on Monday night? Were you pleased with the draft decision, concerned about who leaked it to Politico? Tell me what's on your mind.
Thanks for having me, Prudence. Yeah, I think we all in the pro-life movement remember who texted us first the link to the Politico article. At first I thought, is this real? Can it be? Could it be a fake a document? But looking into it, and now we have confirmation from the Supreme Court that that is, in fact, the draft that has been circulated in February, likely after the Dobbs oral arguments in D.C. We are rightfully outraged that this puts the court in jeopardy. This is a big, big breach, probably a monumental, historic breach of trust for everyone there, as well as the American people. This never happened before. But what's more important to point out is that what we're seeing here in this draft opinion looks good. It looks good on the pro-life side. As you pointed out, they have said that there is no constitutional right to abortion in the Constitution. They said, we can't find it. We're going to return this debate back to the states. And that's an argument the pro-life movement has been asking for decades now. Obviously, we would love a full legal protection of children from the moment of conception. But if we have to go to the states, we will. You're going to see states already ready and poised to protect children. Of course, others are going to expand abortion in their state. But this is how this debate should work out. And this is what we want, is people to educate on what abortion is, what Roe v. Wade has done, and it's time for Roe to go.
Yes, could not agree more. And the night after the Politico story was published, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke at the pro-abortion Emily's List gala. Let's listen to what she had to say.
If the court overturns Roe v. Wade, it will be a direct assault on freedom, on the fundamental right of self-determination to which all Americans are entitled.
Allison, your thoughts on her remarks?
Wow, it's ironic because if you think about those words coming from the little voices in the womb, it changes everything. The right to self-determination, the right to freedom. That is what we're about. We want to look out for little women. Kamala Harris herself was once a little woman in the womb, and she had the chance at life. And we want to look out for her. the future, females, the future men and women of America. All Americans, as she pointed out, do deserve the right to self-determination and freedom. And we are including, rightfully, preborn lives that are unique DNA at the moment of conception, uniquely purposed by God to be here on this planet, to live out their purpose in this world. And we have to end the violence of abortion in order to see that through. At that point, let's join hands. We can work on all these other issues together, and we should. Big issues of maternal mortality, infant mortality, poverty, but the violence has to stop. That is what overturning Roe seeks to do. And I hope we can then all, both left and right, turn our energies collectively to working together to support women and children as we should have been all along.
And speaking of that, what comes next in your view? Do you think the court should release their official decision earlier than they had initially planned? And is there potential for the justices to change how they might cast their final votes at this point?
It's a great question, Prudence. Absolutely. I think it's in the justices' own best prerogative to release their final decision quickly and soon. We're seeing across the nation now is pro-abortion groups ramping up hysteria, ramping up the rhetoric to get people activated, and they're being violent. They're being violent at the Supreme Court. We just saw this in LA the other night. These protests are going to get increasingly hostile unless the court just says, look, this is our final decision, move on. We do not need to draw this out anymore. That's my best opinion there. And absolutely no one should change their mind here. The conservative justices that have decided that they are going to overturn Roe should stand strong. Should any of them move even a little bit, become more wishy-washy in their decision in the final, it will only say that this leak was effective, that we can bully our Supreme Court justices into changing their minds, and it absolutely would change the way that our country works. So they need to stand strong. We as people of faith should be praying that they are bold and that they are courageous, because the attacks on them, their families, just within the movement are going to increase now that this has been leaked.
Yes, and this moment is truly monumental. Thank you so much, Alison Centofante, for being on the front lines right now.
Thanks, Prudence.
And joining me now is Mallory Carroll, Vice President of Communications at the Susan B. Anthony List. Mallory, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks, Prudence, for having me.
Of course. I want to get started just with your reaction to the fact that this decision was leaked, this draft opinion. What does that say about the legitimacy of the court going forward? What should we be thinking about all of this?
Yes, well, this is really troubling that the news has reached us in this way. This breaks, so many protocols and rules, long-established traditions of the court, and the trust that these justices have with each other. I mean, it's a very limited group of people that would have had access to this draft, basically the justices and their clerks. So as the court, there's concerns about the court looking political, and, I think the intention, the critical wisdom is saying that perhaps someone on the left who doesn't like this draft is the one who leaked it to try and scare the justices to changing their position. So it is disturbing because the judicial branch is supposed to be a non-political, non-partisan entity, and it doesn't look great for the justices. However, the draft, if the final decision resembles this draft, it will be a great day for the pro-life movement. It's a really well-written, and of course they confirmed the authenticity of the draft, and we know that Justice Alito wrote this, and it's a remarkable piece of writing.
Yeah, that's right. And talk to me about how the pro-abortion industry is already taking advantage of this. The Senate Democrats, they're calling for an elimination of the filibuster. 3 pro-abortion groups just launched a massive ad buy. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so we saw it outside the Supreme Court on Monday night. It took pro-abortion forces no time to mobilize and get out in front of the court. They were saying, pack the court, end the filibuster. Very highly partisan, highly charged language to try and stop this decision. I see you've got it printed out at your desk. They're trying to prevent this outcome at all costs. And so we're seeing pro-abortion Democrats pull out the stops with their political spending, their actions in Congress. Leader Schumer is pushing, again, the very deceptively named Women's Health Protection Act, which would go beyond codifying Roe versus Wade and Doe versus Bolton and Casey and the rest. It would completely undo every pro-life limit at the state level. We're talking abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, paid for by taxpayers, of course, performed by non-doctors with as little regulation as possible, and any reasonable limits that the states have put in place, informed consent for women, waiting periods, regulations concerning young girls getting abortions, these protections for underage women. It's very disturbing.
Right. And so what is Susan B. Anthony List doing about all of this?
Yeah.
How are we fighting back against this abortion extremism?
Yeah, so obviously the midterms are going to be a huge, important they're going to be a referendum on President Biden's agenda and this Democratic pro-abortion agenda. So we have to get the word out about how extreme the alternative is. It's either overturn Roe versus Wade and let the people decide through their elected representatives where we have consensus, because we do have consensus in many states, and even at the federal level, most Americans support some restrictions on abortion. Right now, the United States, as you know well, and the listeners and readers, watchers probably know very well,
right,
one of 7 countries with China and North Korea. This is something that the justices themselves brought up in the oral arguments. So Roe and the abortion jurisprudence that we have currently put us, our country, in an extreme position that most Americans totally disagree with. We want to try and change that.
Modernize
our law.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Right, that's great. And is there any other thoughts that you would like to add about all of this, Mallory? It's an exciting time for our movement. People kind of aren't really sure how to feel about it in some instances because of how it broke out. But what's the main thing that we need to remember here?
Yeah, I think we need to pray as hard as we can for the justices, pray for a hedge of protection around the court and for the families of the justices, because especially the 5 who signed on to this draft opinion from February, they are under enormous spiritual attack right now, as well as physical attack. I mean, in recent years, things have gotten so heated with Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation. People outside his home, outside of Susan Collins' home, just for voting for him. Right. So anyone connected to these justices is a potential pressure point, and we had to pray that they are safe, that they are protected, and that they do the right thing, because this draft is beautiful, but it's just a draft, and we need the final decision. So let's hope it comes out soon.
Yes, that's right, and we'll be tracking it closely. Mallory Carroll of the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
Thanks.